Hey friends! So in our big high-end estate sale down in St. Augustine, I picked up this set of silver. And you can see the silver is chipping right off. I knew that when I bought it, and fortunately these were each down to about $2.50 each. So I got a killer deal on it. And what I'm going to do now is basically just pick off all of the loose pieces of silver that I can and put them in a little jar that we keep for all of the silver that we manage to get on a variety of other pieces that are damaged or what have you. And eventually, when the jar is full, we will take those in to get them melted down and actually get money from it. There's very little actual silver on silver plated sets, but it doesn't mean that they can't be valuable, and it doesn't mean they can't be useful. So picking up this set for a steal was great for us. And you can see once the silver has all been flaked off, you're going to have this sort of dusty, grainy area. Once I have all the large pieces of silver flaked off that I can pick off with my fingers, I'm going to take a wire brush to all of these pieces and try to get off as much of the little flaky bits as I can. Otherwise, when I add the paint to it, it's going to start chipping again, and it's just going to make a mess of my paint job. I don't know how well you can see in this image, but using that metal brush also helped to smooth out that grainy area where all the silver had been plated originally. So now on these, I'm going to go ahead and just pull off the lids because I'm going to make these into flower pots. Basically, the lid just came off really easy on one of them. On the other one, I did need to use some pliers to actually take the hinge off the lid part, but these were nice and smooth. It took almost nothing. And even with the pliers, I mean, this is soft metal, so it'll generally come off pretty easily. If you do have any rough edges, of course, you can always use some low grit sandpaper, like 100 grit or 80 grit, but I didn't feel the need to worry about that. So I've already actually sort of brushed the surface of this with my wire brush, so I don't think I need to do any sanding or anything. I'm just going to break out my DIY paint in the color White Swan and my favorite S30 Klingon brush, and I am just going to start painting it. And I'm going to paint all of these silver pieces with the White Swan. Nothing to see here, folks. I'm not going to even bother fast forwarding. I'm just painting them white, and I'm going to do 2 coats for the most part, maybe 3 coats in some area, because this is pretty dark gray underneath, and if you like white paint, you probably know gray undertones are the worst. And as suspected, of course, I missed doing a really good job of using the wire brush on the finial of this lid. So I've just started painting it, and what do I have to do? Basically, I am just having all these little flakes, so I'm just going to kind of start over here and flake off all that loose silver. If you have loose silver, using that metal brush is important to get all of the flakes off, or it'll be like picking cat hair off of things. Once the paint is 100% dry, and do give some time on this because your metal is likely to be a bit cool and will brush off easily, I'm going to use 220 grit sandpaper lightly across all of the pieces to pull out all the details and make them a little distressed. You do not have to do this part if you don't like the distressed look, or if you are afraid of the sandpaper, then by all means you can also use a wet rag with DIY paint and just do a little wet distressing. I tend to take off too much when I do wet distressing, and I'm much more skilled with the sandpaper. After you have everything distressed how you want it, I'm going to go ahead and use DIY's Big Top, which is a top coat, and I'm going to give this actually 2 top coats. You may notice that I have my heat gun sitting there with me, and that's because, yes, I did decide to go ahead and speed up the process of getting all of this done by using the heat gun. It's perfectly fine to do that. Again, just make sure that if you're using the heat gun and you're doing metal, don't have your hands anywhere near it. That's a great time to use your Lazy Susan. So for the first teapot, I thought it looked really pretty in white, but it felt like it was missing something. So I added a beautiful orange velvet bow and a single vintage earring, and I think it really spruced it up and makes it look really stylish. Let me know in the comments, did you like it better with the bow or without the bow? For the second teapot, I felt it already had a lot of great detail, and the distressing really enhanced that, so I didn't think it needed anything else. I just added some beautiful Luxberry florals to it. Both of these teapots are available on our website at vintagebedesign.com. So I have two lovely silver trays. This one we actually started cleaning. It's a high quality tray, but it looks like whoever had it before us maybe did a little too much cleaning, and so we have that spot. Basically, we're not going to be able to sell it as silver, so I'm going to paint it. And this is another beautiful footed tray. I love the details in the handle, the shape around it, and it was inscribed. And maybe I wouldn't care about that so much, but whatever the names were on here before young married people, Antioch, this has been scratched out. So again, I think we have a problem in selling it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and paint these just like I did all of the other silver pieces. Now, I have had both of these trays for a while. These were not purchased at that large estate sale, but the process is more or less the same. Since none of the silver was flaking, no need to break out the wire brush to start painting. On our Thursday night Whatnot shows, we sell DIY projects and different supplies, and this time I managed to get a hold of a bunch of IOD pages of transfers and stamps from someone who was going out of business. And so I'm going to go ahead and use this one page that didn't sell and use it on this tray. I want to show that even if you only have a single page of transfers, you can have a huge impact on projects like this. Now, if you want to pick up some IOD and we don't happen to offer it that night on Wednesday, then you can go to my friend Jackie at ruthandruby.com. She sells all of the IOD. So what I'm going to try to do now is actually just sort of crease this transfer along where the curves of the tray are, and then I'm going to use like an X-Acto knife to trim around that. This doesn't have to be perfect. We're just trying to get it, you know, sort of in the ballpark so that it doesn't end up going over the sides. I want a nice clean base with a nice edge around it, so the trim of the tray actually looks like a frame of the transfer. With that all trimmed up, I'm going to go ahead and do that whole transfer thing of just using the sticks that come in the package. This one happens to be a Prima stick, actually. IODs are clear, but whatever, I've got tons of them. So I'm just going to rub on here and slowly start to peel back the plastic, and you'll see if it does not come off easily, just lay the plastic back down and do a little more rubbing and keep going. I am going to show you what happens when you run into some hiccups later in this, so stay tuned and we'll do more rubbing and show you how to fix problems. Once your sheet is down, you've pulled the plastic off, you can use that plastic to rub right over it just to make sure everything is down. If you're using your hand, be careful there's no loose edges and you don't accidentally pull it up. Now I'm going to add this single page of scripture from Prima. This is a 3-pack, and I'm going to use one of the sayings on here. Take joy, my king, in what you hear. Let it be a sweet melody in your ear. I think it goes very nicely, and I specifically laid this out with both pieces in advance to kind of see how this was going to work, make sure everything was going to fit. But you're going to do the transfer exactly the same way you did for the IOD. Take that stick out and start rubbing it down. I love using transfers. Such a big impact with so little work. This was fun and a breeze. Very quick, one and done, no problems. Let's move to the next one. This time I'm going to start with the redesign with Prima transfer in the middle, using my words as the centerpiece. Okay, so let's talk about transfers for a second. Transfers work by surface pressure, and what's happening right now is that there is more pressure again from the paper to the transfer than there is from the paint to the tray. And so what's happening is instead of the transfer going onto the tray, the paint is coming onto the transfer. Normally I'm able to really work around this. It does take some time though. It actually happened a little bit on the last tray, and usually it looks like this. And when I put the top coat down, you'll never see that. This one's getting a little bit more difficult. Partially, this tray wasn't exactly the same as the last tray. I find words and very tiny details to almost always be the culprit. And it does happen more frequently with the trays than anything else. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that the trays get so cold, and that makes things not want to stick as well. So I'm just going to keep plugging along and pulling bit by bit off the paper, trying to come at it. Sometimes if I can come at it from a different angle, then that angle will allow me to pull the rest off. And then the top coat that goes over it will stick it down, and we won't have an issue with its usability. You'll never see it in the end product. But this is not that unusual. Again, especially if you're doing it on trays, metal trays. So I'm gonna let this run a little while with music so you can see exactly how I attack this when it's like it. Okay, I think that's enough that you can kind of see what I'm doing here. The reason I keep cutting the plastic is because I'm trying to get down to the smallest little pieces that I can, so this doesn't impact the other areas, and I can just continue working in very small spaces. And then you see that I'll break out the big top and just dip it with my finger and kind of go over it, and that's gonna let it secure and hold down until I get the entire piece done, so I'm not working on another area and accidentally lift that up. After all of that is finally done, and that did take longer than I expected, I'm gonna cut apart this big old piece of transfer, and I'm only gonna use this one page on this whole tray to fill up all of that outside area. What I'm gonna do here is one of my favorite tips, which is basically to fold these bigger floral designs in half and then cut them apart into two pieces. Sometimes they're just too big for these smaller projects like trays, and you're gonna get a lot more bang for your buck if you go ahead and cut them apart. I'll use part on the top, part on the bottom. Sometimes I'll do these on like layering planks or cutting boards and actually just put half of the transfer on one board if I'm using other words and other designs. So it's a great way to use some of these bigger florals or bigger floral designs without wasting the rest of it. When I'm picking out transfers, the ones that have these beautiful little leafy sketches are some of my favorites because they're so easy to basically cut apart. Lavenders, things like that. You just cut it where the stem is, and you can start layering those out in different places. It's easiest to show you. Now with the small line brush, I'm just taking out my white swan again, and any places where I might have scratched the tray with my stick, especially where the letters were having a problem coming down and I'm using a lot more force, I'm just going to give it some little bitty touch-ups, and then at the end we're going to just do 2 more coats of the big top over the whole piece, and I promise you'll never even notice that was ever a problem. Okay, here we are. Here is the final look at these 2 trays. What do you think? Do you like the monochromatic look of these? Typically I do these with a lot of color, but I really did like the black and white or sepia and black effects of these trays. And you'll notice I didn't paint the underside. I really liked the not painting the feet and not painting the underside. I think it makes it more durable. Let me know in the comments what you think. As part of my silver haul from last week, I also had this great little water pitcher, and as it was sitting across from me, I was thinking it was done and I was just going to put some flowers in it, but I decided it just looked a little too bland. And the 2 markets that we have upcoming are big sort of cowboys, western, barn themes, so I wanted to take this buffalo, which was also an IOD pattern that I had a sheet of left over from our Thursday night whatnot sale, and I thought I would just add this on here, really rough it up and make it a fun project for the household that meets the demographic of our next shows. Whoops, I was sanding so hard I actually pulled part of the buffalo off, but you see, I just put it back on, grab a little of that big top again, and sort of glue it back into place. Nobody will ever see it. You can make all kinds of mistakes and just sort of glue them back with your big top, and all is well. Okay, tell me what you think. Do you like the buffalo? Do you hate the buffalo? I think the crowd that is going to be at this market is going to love it. I don't think it's going to last 15 minutes. And we are just moving along with these projects. This is the silver set that just keeps on giving. Remember, I got these for next to nothing. So this is the sugar and creamer, and I could have just put flowers in them and been done there, or put a little transfer on the side and been done there. But no, 2 different people sent me the same exact image in the last week as inspiration, and they didn't even know what I was working on. Plus, of course, I saw it on Pinterest. So let me show it to you and you'll get an idea what's happening. Now, just how cute is that? Okay, I don't have exactly the same thing, but we're just going to do it my style. So I have taken out some vintage linens that I have. This is a vintage handkerchief, and I have bags and bags of these, so much. And then I am getting out some medium-sized rubber bands. You'll kind of see how this is going to go down. And then I also have a doily. I'm going to stuff this little handkerchief with a little bit of fluff, and then I am going to add some rice that is mixed with lavender seeds, and this smells so good. And it's about this time I realized I'm going to make a huge mess. Went and got a little bowl to put all this in so that I don't make an absolutely huge mess. In my supply of doilies, I have this 3-piece doily. The bottom one looks good too, but I call it a thong because I don't even know what you would do with it. So I'm going to cut these 3 little doilies apart so that I can use all of them in a way that feels a little more effective. So I'm going to start layering these in that bowl in the correct order, and we're going to try not to make a huge mess all over my table here. So it's the doily, then the napkin, then the rice and lavender, and then a little bit of fluff, and then we're going to bind all that up with a rubber band. Now, you might have noticed in the beginning of this segment, I actually was stuffing my vessels with some paper, and that was to take up the bottom portion. Now I'm going to try and stuff my little pin cushions in there, and actually I made the first one a little bit too big, so I'm going to take out some of the fluff and condense it, and then I'm going to cut off some of the bottom of the napkin in order to make it fit properly, and then I'm going to hot glue it in place. Now, how stinking cute are these for Valentine's Day? We do offer these little Valentines on our Wednesday night or Thursday night shows as part of our DIY supplies. I think these came out super cute. You can pick them up at vintagebdesign.com. And I do have one more little project that I'm going to show you the end results. Unfortunately, it looks like I have lost all of the DIY footage, but I'm pretty sure you can figure out how to do the DIY once you see the project. Remember those cute little lids that I popped off with the pliers? Well, I couldn't just leave those behind, so I turned them into the little photo holders, and since I had some little Valentine's cards, I put those in there. Now, I do have this tutorial in another video, so I'll drop that link in the description below, so if you really need to know how to wrap the wires, that'll be in that video, and you can check that out. If you enjoyed today's projects, let me know. And if you did like today's video, please be sure to hit like, subscribe, and consider sharing this video with a friend. It really does help. We'll see you next Sunday.